Hi, my name is Kelsey Sick, and I'm a PhD candidate at Western University in Canada. I first want to start by saying thank you for joining me in today's talks and presentations. I would like to now share with you some findings from our study that utilized experience sampling methodology among a sample of university students. The benefits of regular participation in physical activity span numerous health facets. However, it's well documented that majority of young Canadian adults do not follow the recommended guidelines of participating in at least 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activities per week. Consequently, understanding factors that are associated with physical activity behavior is an important public health priority. For the current study, we propose that experiences of self-conscious emotions, specifically shame and guilt, could influence physical activity behavior and engagement. Distinct from basic conceptualizations of emotions, self-conscious emotions are elicited by self-reflective and self-evaluative processes. Whether these processes are implicit or explicit, experiences of these self-conscious emotions fundamentally involve people's reactions to their own characteristics or behaviors. So in the context of health-relevant processes and drawn from body image theories, feelings of shame and guilt in reference to one's body have been uniquely associated with physical activity regulations and behavior. Body-related shame is an acutely painful emotion that individuals experience when they fail to meet internalized social standards in relation to the body, with a focus deeply rooted in the evaluation of their global self. Typically accompanied by a sense of worthlessness and the desire to shrink and hide, experiences of shame are associated with avoidant behaviors, particularly in situations that might evoke the emotion. So in the context of the body, those that are ashamed of their body might avoid physical activity environments that put their body on display and subsequently contribute to lower levels in physical activity participation. Body-related guilt, in contrast, is typically a less painful, devastating experience, as guilt arises in response to a behavior and not the person as a whole. Rather than motivating avoidance behaviors, as in the case of shame, body-related guilt motivates reparative actions in an attempt to undo the harm. So, for example, an individual who feels guilty about their body and weight control efforts will engage in physical activity to repair the damage done by their behavior. Based on these operationalizations and evidence, body-related guilt may lead individuals to engage in higher levels of maladaptive appearance-related exercise. Although research supports the assertion that increased feelings of body-related shame and guilt can promote varying engagement levels of physical activity behaviors, much of the literature is primarily drawn inferences from cross-sectional study designs and precludes an understanding of the time-varying nature of self-conscious emotions and physical activity. While there's considerable within-person variability in emotions and movement over time, it is unknown the extent to which fluctuations in body-related self-conscious emotions impact subsequent movement time. As such, the primary objective of the current study was to examine the within-person and between-person association between body-related self-conscious emotions and time engaged in movement using an ecological momentary assessment design. We used a sample of university students to test both a concurrent and time-lagged model. In our concurrent time model, we suggested that temporal experiences of body-related shame would relate negatively to concurrent movement time, and that temporal experiences of body-related guilt would relate positively to concurrent movement time. In our time-lagged model, we suggested that lagged body-related shame would relate negatively to subsequent movement time, and that lagged body-related guilt would relate positively to subsequent movement time. Participants were recruited from undergraduate classes at our institution, Western. After recruitment, participants attended an introductory meeting with a research assistant where the research assistant described the study and its procedures. Interested participants provided informed consent, downloaded and installed the experience sampling software PACO onto their smartphones, and completed a baseline Qualtrics survey. For the following 7 days, participants were instructed to complete 7 randomly delivered EMA prompts from the PACO app each day. There was a minimum 1-hour interval between prompts and a 45-minute window for responding. Participants were encouraged to respond to the prompt as soon as possible. Participants were also compensated with a $20 e-gift card for participating in the study. All data were collected between October 2019 to February 2021, and this experience sampling study design was approved by our institution ethics board. So for movement time, participants were asked to indicate if they were sitting, standing, moving, or sleeping when they received the prompt. If participants reported moving, they were asked to indicate the number of minutes that they were engaged in the movement. For both body-related guilt and body-related shame, they were assessed using single items developed for the study. So participants rated their agreement with the items, "Since the last beep, I felt guilty that I do not do enough for my appearance," as a proxy for body-related guilt, and "Since the last beep, I felt ashamed of the way I look," as a proxy for body-related shame. Overall, a total of 110 participants enrolled in the study. However, 14 individuals were removed due to incomplete data or technical issues with the app. Given that the purpose of the current study was to examine concurrent and lagged models of body-related emotions and movement time, the design consisted of a multi-level model structure with 49 individual observations nested in a random sample of 96 participants. Just to give you a quick glimpse into who our participants were, 80% of participants identified as female with a mean age of around 19 years. Overall, the participants reported low to moderate daily levels of both body-related guilt and body-related shame. Additionally, the overall average movement time duration across all subjects per day was approximately 4 minutes. Correlations for both within person, which we see above, and between person, which we see below, are displayed. Notably, body-related guilt had a strong positive association with body-related shame at both within and between person levels. Looking at the final model with concurrent movement time as our outcome variable, at the within person level of the analysis, we see that participants reported significantly lower concurrent levels of movement time during instances when body-related guilt was lower than usual and when body-related shame was higher than usual. At the between person level, neither average levels of body-related shame nor guilt predicted average movement time. And for the final model, with subsequent movement time as the outcome variable, we see that both lagged body-related shame and guilt did not predict movement time at the next prompt at either the within person or between person level. The current study tested the relationship between body-related self-conscious emotions of guilt and shame and movement time using ecological momentary assessment. While the results of the concurrent model did not show any significant effects at the between-person level, the results were consistent with both the movement behavior and self-conscious emotion literature at the within-person level, which suggests that there's considerable within-person variability among these constructs. These findings also support the more conventional cross-sectional research that has explored the relationship between these constructs, as we see that both body-related guilt and body-related shame are more likely to occur during movement. However, our time lag results suggest that these emotional experiences do not lead to increases in movement behavior. Instead, perhaps the function of emotions may be momentary and not appropriately captured in the subsequent movement time response. Additionally, movement time may be a non-specific indicator of physical activity. Looking at the intensity and the type of the movement is also warranted. Experimental research is also needed to truly understand the causal link between body-related shame and body-related guilt in movement time. This study highlights the importance of examining self-conscious emotions over time using experience sampling methodology. In doing so, we provide a first-hand perspective of the within-person association that exists between self-conscious emotions and movement time. We hope this investigation will serve as a catalyst for additional attention to the topics. Thank you for joining me in today's presentation, and I would be happy to answer any of your questions.